With you guys today. I'm Dr. Drew. I'm a vitalistic chiropractor at the Source St. Pete. We are just 2 blocks down this way, and really happy to be serving the St. Pete area in the Grand Central District. I practice with Dr. Brett Richard over here. We'll get introductions in a minute, but him and I are both interested in natural healing, biohacking, and serving our community to empower them that they can heal from the inside out without things like drugs and surgery, etc. And allowing ourselves to be, again, empowered in our own health journey. So I'll pass this along, let everybody introduce themselves this way. Oh, you got your own mic, perfect.
Sure, yeah. Hey, I'm actually a fill-in. I think a couple people couldn't make it, so I'm very happy to take this space. I'm Christian Rasmussen. I'm the owner of Minnesota Nice Botanicals. We're the largest importer, retailer, distributor of Amanita muscaria in the world, which is a very potent nootropic amongst some other things. And I'm all about biohacking, so I'm happy to be here.
All right. Oh, wow. Shit. My name is Dr. Brett, also a fellow vitalistic chiro at the Source St. Pete. Yeah, really happy to be here. Oh, that's what it was. Yeah, no, really excited to dive into all things natural healing. I feel like the world, and especially the U.S., has become dependent on very one-sided medical model, and so having some alternative viewpoints, discussions, anything that just opens the ballot up, that's what we're here for. So really excited to be here.
Brian Hamilton. First of all, I want to thank Chelsea, my friend, for inviting me to the panel, and I want to recognize Pete for throwing this amazing event. Cannadelic, right? It's focusing on mental health and therapeutic products that are natural. And that segues into what I do. So my company is called Private Label Health and Beauty, and I've been manufacturing health and beauty products for over 20 years. So that's my background. I also have talk about mental health. I have a mental health therapy app where people can go online and talk to a therapist 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we make it very affordable. Also have a telemedicine company that makes access to doctors very affordable as well. So those are my goals, to have therapeutic supplements available for people's natural health and access to healthcare at an affordable rate. Those are my 2 goals. A little bit about my background, but before I get into that, I do have a booth out front. If anybody needs my cards or wants to talk to me later, and I want to introduce my managing partner, Alexis. Do you mind standing up and just waving to the camera or something? So if you see Alexis, yay, walking on the floor with me, feel free to reach out to her. Basically, I get the concept, I turn it into reality, but she makes sure the projects move forward. So my background is, I have a graduate degree from Nova Southeastern, which also has medical and legal degrees as well. And so my first journey was in clinical trials, phases 1 through 4. Found that very interesting, all the research that was going on there. And then my next position, I worked at the Laboratory Corporation of America, where I really dove into diagnostic laboratory services. And I had the privilege to study at Research Triangle for molecular and biology and pathology. And I met a lot of really smart people. Now, I'm not a doctor, but I'm on the business side. But I get to interact with really intelligent scientists and researchers, and kind of washes over. And then from there, I became an executive at a drug company. And it was at that point that I started thinking about my own professional journey. People are going to diagnostic labs to diagnose problems that they're having that they already have, or they're using drugs to solve problems that they're already, experiencing. And I thought, how can I get in front of that? How can I get to where I can be involved and we can help people before that even happens? And hence, that's how I get into natural products. So I make skincare, supplements, things that can help people's immune system be more stable, so they don't have these problems really going forward. And then the reason that I'm here is to impart that with everybody. Now, the thing that's really curious to me, and it kind of ties into the whole marijuana industry, is that there's this new research peptide emergence into peptides, right? And it's a lot of it is not for animal or human use. And I just wanted to dive into that later on the panel, if that's okay, if you want to ask some questions and so forth. But I have to read this disclaimer. So my company does not manufacture or endorse research peptides for human or animal use. These substances are not approved for such purposes, and I strictly adhere to all regulatory guidelines. My discussions about these peptides are purely from scientific curiosity standpoint, similar to how the landscape for substances like marijuana evolved over time, if that makes sense. So I firmly believe in sharing information and knowledge responsibly, ensuring that any insights are framed with the correct legal and ethical context. So with that in mind, thank you.
Of course. Thank you. Good to have some disclaimers, understand what we're getting ourselves into.
Thank you.
Covering things up. So I guess on that note, we can start things off with emerging aspects of healthcare, natural health remedies or practices, or even things like technologies, peptides included, that might be great on the educational side of things for our people to know about. So maybe things like the peptides themselves, breath work, biohacking, etc. If each of you want to share a few minutes on what's most interesting to you and what you found beneficial on the natural healing side of things, you can go ahead and share a little bit on that front as well.
All right. So as I had mentioned, I manufacture health and beauty products. So I get to interact with really smart people that are developing brands. They come up with ideas, concept to reality. Like, for example, I'm working on a berberine. Berberine is kind of a weight loss supplement that is different than the weight loss shots that we're hearing about, like Mounjaro, Ozempic, Wegovy, Zepbound, those kind of things. So it's a natural thing. We're putting it in a gummy, and it's really hard to get that to taste good because it tastes horrible. But it took us about 2 years, and we're finally there. We're going to launch that into Costco, I think, for this client. So it's really interesting when that happens. But as far as the peptides go, so I don't possess them, I don't own them, I don't sell them. However, I ended up with the COVID about 3 years ago, and I gained a bunch of weight. I ended up with a heart condition, and I nearly died. And I'm not anti-vax, I'm not pro-vax, I'm right down the middle. I'm Switzerland when it comes to that. I just did the vaccine because it was recommended through friends, and but I got bit by it. And some people did well, and I'm one of the unlucky ones. So I ended up with a double heart procedure. I ended up weighing 270 pounds. I was on medications of $700 a month to keep my heart from failing. I was in heart failure. And that's when I was introduced by the doctor to these weight loss peptides like tirzepatide, semaglutide. So it was prescribed to me. And the next thing you know, I lost 70 pounds. My waist went from 42 to 32. The hunger thoughts disappeared, the depression, and I was taking off all the drugs. And I've been fully released from my cardiologist, and my heart is in full sinus. And I thought, it changed my life. My life was kind of over at that point. And by the way, I am chronologically 66 years old, but biologically I'm in my late 40s. And I've learned to do that through biohacking, through the supplements I have. But I think that the peptides are the next emergent, and I'm really interested in the knowledge of that. Although I don't take any, I'd like to see what happens in the next 5 or 10 years.
Beautiful. It's awesome, man. It's cool that your chronological age can be so different from our biological age, and how that works to allow ourselves the technology to put these things into practice and watch how the body heals and even goes backwards. It's amazing.
Thank you.
Dr. Brett, do you have anything for us?
Yeah, actually, with our realm and really our empowering, essentially the healing from the inside out. Obviously, I'm a chiro, so we're going to talk from that lens. One of the things I want to touch on is actually the power of breath work. It's definitely a buzzword. A lot of people doing Wim Hof, a lot of things going on. And with that, it's recognizing kind of the deeper layers to it. And so when you think breath work, there is a work component, but the breath that's the vital part. That is the life force within the body, right? And so when we think of a way to, I guess, backtrack a little bit, the world we live in is very sympathetic driven, right? It's this work, work, work. We're all in this very high vibration for most of the day, if not all the day. And so finding those breaks to kind of drop out of that really stimulated, sensitive, arena. And breathwork's a great way to start that. When you think of breathwork, it's essentially the breath is the primary way that your brain recognizes what state your body's in, right? Specifically your nervous system. And so if we think of that panicked breath, that's a very shallow, that's up here, right? And so we think of the chest tightness, the flushing of the face. Sometimes even people get these chronic headaches. And so recognizing that a lot of that is driven from the inside, if you can dive into breath work and realize that that's your body's immediate way to switch your nervous system from that fight or flight to more of that rest, digest, heal, that's a big part. And so at the Source Chiropractic, we actually host breathwork, a big breathwork ceremony every second Wednesday of the month. Essentially an opportunity for community to get together and kind of unpack some of those deeper things. Sometimes it's very physical, sometimes it can go all the way to the spiritual. But finding kind of that middle ground and anywhere in between to find those times to take a step back, take a breath, regulate your nervous system from the inside out. it's a beautiful thing, and really excited that we get something we get to put on at least once a month. So.
Well said.
So yeah, I mean, I love all the new technology coming out. Peptides are amazing. I used. How's this? Can you hear me a little better? Can you hear me a little better? Can we turn this up a little bit? Yeah, all the peptides coming out are wonderful. I've used Glandicort. I don't know if you're familiar with that for adrenal glands. I'm really interested in, I'm in the plant medicine space. I think one of the things that I've been learning and coming to a lot recently is age old, and that's intention. And I think that comes into play really with any medicine that we're doing, any practice that we're doing, something like breath work, setting an intention and really holding and embodying that intention as we move through the practice. It really brings things, to a whole nother level. And then there's different levels of intention that we can set. And as I've gone through my journey, one of the things that we work on a lot is getting people off of benzodiazepines or alcohol. It's my story. It's how I got into Amanita. It saved my life. We're finding time and time again that the more intensely and concentrated people can set these intentions, the more healing they do. And it's really an exponential factor. And I've found with utilizing peptides or utilizing anything that the intention that I set really sets the tone for what I'm working through and where I'm going. And I think that's, it's very talked about in the plant medicine space, but I don't think it's talked about as much in these other alternative health spaces. And I think it's a really important aspect to this healing journey that we're all on, or this evolution of consciousness and thought journey that we're all partaking in.
Amen. Yes, sir. I do love the coalescence nowadays of the new things like the breaking edge of the peptide research, as well as things coming back from the ancient side of things, like breathwork, which has been a staple in most indigenous traditions for thousands of years. And now we start to have the science to back it up. Similarly, people have been using sauna and cold plunge for thousands of years. Maybe they didn't have fancy plunges like we had today, but they're going in cold water and allowing their body to regulate that natural stress that's coming up from that experience. And again, it all comes down to nervous system regulation, allowing the breath to catch up with the stimulus involved and for us to become better for it. And all of the other benefits that cascade from that, like the anti-inflammation for our joints, our muscles, and even our brain, which coincides with the mental health aspect, and why so many people that practice Wim Hof regularly with the breath work and the cold plunge exposure allows their mental health to get back to places that maybe they've never experienced before, or back to before they experienced a traumatic event. And it's really awesome to see, again, that we now have people like Huberman making this huge and bringing more science to something that people have been doing for thousands of years. So yeah, beautiful to see the way biohacking has kind of brought together the ancient and the futuristic into the same realm. It's beautiful. My next question for you guys is maybe spending a couple minutes on your healing journey and what kind of inspired you to become as aware as you are now in the health and wellness space, as well as what's inspired you to kind of keep moving forward and what you see in the future as the vision that we can all hold for natural healing.
Yeah, I really like this panel because it really ties into my philosophy, which is we can use these product technologies, but you just can't use them alone. We have to do things, right? So we can, from the mental health perspective, we can't think our way into a new way of acting, but we can act our way into a new way of thinking. So we have to take action with what we do. And that, I'll tie it into the weight loss shots, right? Like tirzepatide, semaglutide. It's really interesting what's happening with these products. If you don't know what off-labeling means, when I was at the drug company, I'll give you an example. Sildenafil is called Viagra. But before it was Viagra, it was a heart medication. And when they distributed the heart medication, the men said they started having this experience with erections, and they said, oh my, and they called it Viagra, and that's how it was born. They'll have a clinical studies on a particular drug that's safe and effective, and they'll find out if they change the dose a little bit, they just rename it, and the next thing you know, it has a different application. And we're talking about alcoholism, and that kind of thing, and that difficulty. Tirzepatide came out, semaglutide came out, and it's for weight loss. Actually, originally, it was for lowering your A1C. So it's for pre-diabetics. And when they were taking it, they were having this side effect, much like the other thing I was talking about. And they said, I don't think about food anymore. I'm like, what do you mean you're not thinking about food anymore? They go, yeah, I don't even think about food. I'm not even hungry, it doesn't bother me. A lot of times food is an emotional thing, right? Like we have to eat it because we're depressed, or we just eat for no reason, or mindlessly eat. Because our hormones have depleted, that turns the switch off, that tells us to stop eating. So what they found out was these peptides, which they used to lower the A1C, actually turned off the switch to think about food. So then they changed the name to, I think it was like Wegovy, and Mounjaro, which was for lowering the A1C, became Zepbound. So it just gets prescribed for the specific condition that they want to diagnose you with. But it went further. Now they're prescribing tirzepatide for heart medication. Back to my journey. They didn't have it back then. It just was coincidental that my heart healed, and now they prescribe it for that. They're prescribing it for sleep apnea, a different dose. And there's studies that I've seen from the University of Oklahoma where it talks about where people that drink don't have to. So severe alcoholics have taken this, and apparently it's helped them to kind of get off the booze. And then people that are like what I'd say normal drinkers that would have to have 2 or 3 beers, they're just not interested anymore. And it's not like antabuse where they just don't like it, they don't want the experience, they just feel satisfied or satiated. So that's what's happening is we're finding these different uses for the same thing. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to touch on, I guess, a little bit of my journey. Originally came into chiropractic. I had 2 ACL tears back in high school and kind of changed the trajectory of my life. Was in sports my whole life, and then went through the whole Western, I've had a couple surgeries, I've seen the whole Western medical model, and looked for something more. Going through, and then obviously now in practice, I'd say the biggest thing that is something I'd like to change is how our healthcare system is truly sick care. There's no health involved in that. There's money to be made in people being sick. There's a whole idea and a whole paradigm that you have to be on these pills, and that the reason you're in pain is because of a lack of ibuprofen pumping through your body, which is not true. And so looking to change just the perception of what health actually is. That's why we do what we do. It's why we're chiropractors. And really, like, my view and my goal for the future is that health isn't wrapped around a pill. Health is something that's inside you already, and something that with the right work, environment, love, structure, that can all be brought to light. And so that's pretty simple. That's what I'm going for.
Well said. So it's kind of like health is our natural state. It's just removing the barriers that keep us from that place in the first place.
Yep, exactly.
Well said.
Yeah, so, like I said, I was getting off benzodiazepines when I found Amanita. Worst experience I've ever been through. Years and years of withdrawal. It's really brain damage at that point. But through that process, and I've been studying pharmacology and plant medicines and compounds since I was 13, 14. But it was really the impetus for me to get into really everything and anything that could help. Now, there are a lot of substances or plant medicines that can help with these things, but what it really comes down to is rewiring and retraining and stepping out of these divots and grooves that we find ourselves getting stuck in. So while there are many allies on this journey that can help us with that, the thing that I've found that's been the most beneficial, that's helped me grow the most is really meticulously watching my thought processes. It's meticulously watching how I react to situations, and then it's doing things in the affirmative that can allow me to step out of these grooves and these divots that my body and mind have programmed into my system. And yeah, there's plenty of things that can help us gently lift ourselves up, but really in the end it comes down to us and our own healing. And that's one of the, I used to rely on substances. That's why I got addicted to benzos or opiates in the first place. But learning this has been truly revolutionary for my own, and it makes so much sense. Like, I can understand it intellectually, but experiencing it and realizing it, making it real is a whole other thing. So I think that's also a really large aspect. And it goes back to the intention setting, like where it's really up to us how much we heal. And relying on a crutch is what our current medical paradigm has done. Yeah.
Awesome. Dr. Dyllon, welcome. Dr. Dyllon's also a chiropractor with us at The Source. So the question initially was, what is a little bit of background on your health and healing journey, and what inspires you moving forward to be the vision of health in society in the West?
Beautiful. First of all, apologies for being late. I was finishing setting up the healing tent outside, so I hope that you guys all get a chance to go out there. There's a whole bunch of awesome healers out there facilitating today. But I am here now. My name is Dr. Dyllon. I own the Source Chiropractic, and I am obsessed with how deep we can go on true healing. My question basically is, what does it mean to heal? That's been my question for a long time. My story started when I was 15. My dad started seeing a chiropractor because I grew up in a blue-collar family. He owns a landscaping company, and my mom was tired of hearing him bitch about his low back pain. But after a month of being in care, he got off of 75% of his fast and slow-acting insulin. And this blew my family's mind. We didn't really understand what was going on. The chiropractor explained how the autonomic nervous system works and how your brain and your body have to be in communication with one another for the body to operate at its optimum, and that there's not a specific adjustment that cures diabetes, but what is the cause to all these issues? And at 15 years old, for over half of my life, I've been chasing down the question, what is the cause to dis-ease, dysfunction, discomfort in the body? It's all a dissonance. What I've come to realize, and we're all here at Cannadelic, and so clearly we're at least curious or dabbling into the cannabis and psychedelic world. And so that's been something for me that has really unboxed my paradigm to the human experience. What I've realized is that at the pure core of everything, it's just energy. We are all energy. Everything is energy. We are here in the physical to experience a physical life, to have cause and effect, right? And so there are consequences that we experience here that you can't experience if you just think about things. Those thoughts can manifest in the physical, but you experience everything in the physical. It's why you'll hear the mystics and the gurus talk about the third dimension being the heart space, right? The dimension of love, the dimension of light. Well, when we're in dissonance in this dimension, there's going to be consequences that arise in our life. We see that arise emotionally, mentally. We see it arise physically in our bodies. As a chiropractor, I see this arise every day, and it's my job to discover, where is this dissonance? Now, the beauty of the nervous system is your nervous system is what connects the ethereal you to the physical you. Your thoughts, your emotions, your dreams, your ambitions, these all exist somewhere, and you can tap into them with your nervous system. If I was to take you all through a meditation right now and take you to a very dark space, we would probably elicit an emotional response. And that emotional response is real, even if that meditation or that dreamlike state that we create is not real. And so that starts to impact our lives on a daily basis. It starts to impact our body, because then your nervous system, this is where the psychedelics come in, starts to behave in a pattern. You see that your brain uses about 20% of your body's energy every day, but it only weighs about 3 pounds. So it's an energy hog. So what does it do? It sets up strategies. It puts things in patterns and repetition. Now, you either have patterns that are creating health and function, vitality, and that pattern will create more over time. These are your people that you see that are in their 70s and 80s and have great health, right? What are they doing? They're creating patterns of health and vitality for their entire life. Then you have patterns of dysfunction, disorder, and disease, and when those are left strung on long enough, it's going to hit you at some point in time. You start to manifest these things physically. It's never a lack of a drug. It's never a lack of a surgery. It's never a lack of something from the outside in that heals you. It is always a dissonance that, when corrected from the inside out, gives your body the opportunity to heal, right? Now, we are in the physical reality, and there are limitations of matter, and if you've let things go for too long, we've got beautiful things that can help you get going in the right direction, give you that catalyst. If your hip's obliterated because you haven't taken care of it, you might need a surgery. But what are you going to change after that surgery? If you have something going on systemically, you might need to get your body regulated with some pharmaceuticals. But is that a long-term solution? Or is that simply masking an issue and starting to change the biomarkers to just make it look like you're healthy? Why is it that people with heart disease that get on all of the different heart medications still die from heart disease? What is that? we're not focused on healing, especially in this country. We spend more on pharmaceuticals, more on the medical industrial complex than any other developed country in the world, and we are one of the sickest. Highest in SIDS, cancer is going through the roof. It's so interesting. You travel to some of these other countries where a lot of these sacred medicines come from, and it's simple living. People are happy to see the sky and feel the rain and to just say hello to one another, even if they're living in a hut. It's rather humbling, because here we are in this fast-paced society that's go, 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 create, 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 do, 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 that's putting all of our bodies, which are also animals, into this chemical cascade of sympathetic tone that is leaving you stuck in survival mode, whether you feel it or not. You're stuck in survival mode, and if you don't realize that you've got to get yourself out of that survival mode with a variety of different things, whatever resonates with you the most, to get into the creation mode, which is the parasympathetic aspect of your nervous system. This is a regulated nervous system. When you're stuck in fight or flight for too long, disease will manifest. So what am I inspired by? Specifically being here today, and why I brought the Source Chiropractic out here to sponsor this healing booth, is I'm inspired that there's communities like this. I'm inspired to look across this room and to see so many different peoples from different walks of life here to talk about plants, here to talk about psychedelics, here to talk about things that 10 years ago, it was a lot more hush-hush. Now people are asking questions. I have people almost daily in my practice asking, hey doc, what do you know about mushrooms? What do you know about this? What do you know about that? And what does that tell me? It tells me that people are looking for truth. They're looking to expand their mind. They're looking to open their heart. They're looking to heal. So I'm inspired to be a practitioner that's delivering true healing in a world that is tired of big pharma, that's tired of the surgeries, that's tired of the over-medicating, that's tired of the medical industrial complex, and is looking for genuine healing. I'm inspired for the young people that are coming up that look to their parents and their grandparents and they say, yo, all those drugs, no thank you. I want a different answer. I'm inspired that we're alive in a time where the internet does exist. And while everything that can be helpful can be detrimental, we can get stuck in this scrolling cycle, but you can also educate yourself so much. We're no longer living in the dark ages where you can't educate yourself on anything and everything you want to know. And that really inspires me, because people are waking up. And the powers that be, and all I mean by that is where all the money is. I'm not all getting into the conspiracy shit or whatever, but there's money to be made. There's a reason why every other commercial is trying to get you on a different drug. And as beautiful as the peptide movement is, because that gets to a deeper layer of the core, if you're just looking for a new needle with a new peptide of a different drug and you're still not healing yourself, you'll be stuck in a new trap. Because it has to come from the inside out. Use these things as a catalyst to move you forward, but you have to change the heart. You have to change the mind. You have to create the synergy between the two. When you change your entire being, you will know that you are healing when all of you heals, not when you start to feel better. When you start to think differently, when you start to act differently, when you start to have different habits, when you start to have different desires, ideas, ambitions, dreams, that's when you're healing. That's what gets me jazzed up.
Well said. Thank you, Dr. Dyllon. Awesome.
Sorry for being late.
Better late than never. I'm glad you made it. So as we start to wrap things up a little bit, I'd like for everybody to share some parting words on maybe some inspirational stuff that's been prominent in your life, or also how we can connect with you, what your booth is offering today, and how we can connect with you a little bit further at Cannadelic.
Great. So yeah, I loved the panel, loved the discussion. Thanks for that. That was amazing. Yeah,
Thank you.
Agree 100% with everything you just said.
I could feel that when you were talking. I was like, we're on the same page.
Yeah, totally. And I agree in the sense that even in the peptide world, like if it helps them with weight loss initially to get started, right? If they're not doing exercise, if they're not eating right, if they're not doing spiritual behaviors, it doesn't work at all.
100%.
Like in my case, I don't drink, smoke, or drug, and I haven't for about 32 years. It's just my decision. And I just kind of got off on all that. And I found for my spiritual journey to be fulfilled, I have about 15 people that I mentor. And I get nothing from it other than I just kind of impart information to them on how I grow and develop. So I have community. So it's really important to have love and community. And then there are technologies such as supplements or peptides that can help kind of get us from a painful area out of that, and then we can get off of it and move forward. That's kind of where I'm at. So I really appreciate the panel. I appreciate all you guys, and I appreciate the audience. Thank you.
I'd like to open up for questions for the panel. Does anybody have any questions? No questions? Right there.
So you mentioned about peptides and new technologies that are coming out of them. Once they're available to the public, where would you look?
Say that, I couldn't hear you the last part.
Once they're available to the public, where would you look?
Right. Well, you'd have to go, right now it's only like doctor's offices. I know they're having a big conference in Orlando where there's physicians that are getting certified in peptides. So if you go online, you can see what they're doing right now. But as far as finding them, I wouldn't know where to find them myself. I just know if I kind of just do some research, you can see a lot of information that's going on with that. I did have something that was interesting that I did find. So there are peptides in agriculture, right? They're using peptides to make plants more drought resistant and more pest resistant, so they don't have to use chemicals and such. And I saw this study where someone took mammalian peptides and started using them on plants. So for example, there's these peptides that do like tanning, right? So they put them in flowering plants. And then there was one where they used for glucose, right? And they put them in a cacti, things of that nature. They used healing peptides to, just make things grow faster, that kind of thing. So if you just kind of do your own research, you'll find that. But if you want to find how to source it right now, it's very limited. The FDA hasn't approved any of it, as far as I know, except for maybe those weight loss shots that you see out there that are legally prescribed. Everything else, it's kind of like where the marijuana industry is and the mushrooms. It's kind of like no go until it goes. Thank you. Yeah. Speak up a little. Yeah, like I'm just doing research. I don't sell it, I don't use it, that kind of thing. But things, anecdotally, what we're talking about, right, is that, everybody has to know their own individual self. You could go to marijuana or you can go to mushrooms and be suicidal. I mean, if you have a certain, condition psychologically, you can be really hurt by taking anything. You have to know yourself. You have to know the practitioners. They want to know your background before they start introducing anything to you. But on the other hand, I've heard of people taking those things and getting off Adderall. So there's the good, there's the bad. You could take, Advil, and then you could get stomach cancer from it. So you can go to any end of the spectrum. But if I were to say any advice, which I'm not giving, it would be that the individual has to know themselves. And I just think it's interesting for us to just study it and see what happens. Right, the long-term implications, it's all new, so we'll see what happens. Yeah, and like I said, I had read also where people had bad reactions to that. But on the other hand, then they started emerging it for sleep apnea or for alcoholism. So there's all these positives and negatives. It's just navigating through it. It's all so new. But I'd love to talk to you after if you're around. Thanks for the questions. Thank you.
Anyone else? Like, big hand for our panel today. I want to thank you guys very much. If you guys want to get more information, we have a booth outside. This panel was very, very important for me. Many of you may know I've undergone probably about 10 surgeries in the last 6-7 years. 4 in the last year and a half. Major back surgeries, need another neck surgery.
No, you don't. Come hit me up.
And you
I'm
know,
not kidding.
the mind, body, spirit is a very important thing. But you know what was said today by Dylan, you know, all the things that you're going to learn about today are tools. These are tools, but you know, doing the work that goes along with it is what's very instrumental. And there is a real connection between the mind and the body. And when we give our mind an opportunity to rest and be able to relax, there's amazing things that we can do with our nervous system and our body to heal. So thank you guys.